Hey guys, welcome back. It's me.
And Shadow.
Yep, I don't even have to say my name. I am the Iron
It's
Analyst.
Daichi and Shadow.
I'm the Iron Analyst now.
Yeah?
Yep. I'm the Iron to your Analyst.
Well, yesterday you ranked up, right?
Yep.
So
I'm now officially
the Silver Analyst. Let's go!
Woo! Yep, I'm climbing. I've cut ties to normal society and I've been playing more.
That's good.
Yep.
Maybe.
And just with playing more, holy cow, LCS finals.
FlyQuest versus Golden Guardians.
Yep, and then
There were a lot of games.
there were, but there were some big announcements before those games.
Oh, yeah.
We mentioned it last week. TSM might be potentially dropping out. They're still wishy-washy on that.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest one was also during the same time. CLG has announced that they will no longer exist.
Yep.
They're just done.
They're done.
It's their time to be buried into the ground and forgotten.
They decided to stop bleeding money, which majority of the esports orgs are bleeding money.
That's because they don't know how to do content.
Maybe, yeah.
But the org that did pick them up, because it will still be the same roster, NRG, which has been in the league before, but now NRG's rebranded. They got good foundation. They actually have sources of income now.
Yeah.
Which is the big thing.
They have a very strong Valorant content group.
Yeah.
Obviously. Like you said, a lot of successful orgs, they focus on content. Like specifically, we look at G2, we look at 100 Thieves, and a couple other orgs. They be stacking those views on YouTube, right? And that does help with funding esports and whatnot.
And they get decent sponsorships
Absolutely.
when they do that.
Yeah, because more exposure, more sponsorships, right?
Yeah. So looking forward to that. I would say it could possibly be a boost, because a lot of people are saying that it's going to cause League to die. And that's only from a boomer perspective.
I agree.
Because
go ahead.
The two teams one team that is leaving and then one that's potentially leaving are teams that players that have been fans of those teams since the beginning of League. They're old, they refuse to change teams or look at other teams, and so this will either force them to swap to a different team or just leave. But with more content being created by the new orgs coming in, you're going to get a lot more of the younger generation, which then will potentially lead to a lot more younger players wanting to enter it and just increase the fan base. That's why I think Valorant's climbing so well, is because they're targeting a solid audience. They're not trying to target the 40-year-old people that have been playing League since day one.
Absolutely. It's almost like Disney movies, for example. When you're at that age where you enjoy Disney movies and you become older, they're releasing the same Disney movies, but when you get older, you're sort of like, hey, this movie sucks. It was so much better back then. But in reality, Disney has always just been targeting that same, age group.
Yeah.
Right? We just grew out of it. I think same goes, I understand how the fans feel about the idea of League dying, because not only is CLG gone and TSM potentially being gone, Bjergsen has officially announced his retirement, which is an end of an era, right?
It's 10 years.
It's 10 years, but
a lot of professional sports players, they call quits at 10 too. So it's respectable.
It's respectable, but like you said, a lot of the old generation had big ties with this player.
Yeah.
A lot of personal ties, a lot of dreams, a lot of memories, and now that he's gone, they're sort of left with nothing to,
Yeah.
nothing.
They have no beacon.
No beacon, yeah.
But
no beacon to light the rift.
There was a lot of nods to him in finals in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, both FlyQuest and Golden Guardians would always hover Bjergsen's favorite champion, Time Man himself.
I think that was a tribute. I really respected it.
Yeah. And they did it all 5 games, which, speaking of which, 5 games. What a banger.
Did you expect that? Did you expect 5 games?
No. I was expecting it to either be Golden Guardians 3-1-ing, just because of FlyQuest's kind of fall from grace.
Yeah.
Or FlyQuest 3-0-ing Golden Guardians, showing that they're still the second best.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add on to. I wasn't agreeing with the first part with Golden Guardians doing a 3-1, but I was for sure that FlyQuest was going to do a clean sweep.
Yeah. Well, I did that because I knew Golden Guardians couldn't do a clean sweep. They still have too many hiccups. But
understandable.
Sometimes when a team is just on a massive losing streak, it's hard to recover mentally.
True.
So that's why it was 50-50. I had no side truly winning.
That's understandable, and I definitely agree. Golden Guardians, they've become with a momentum for sure. They were seed 6, right? And suddenly, they're right at the spot of potentially locking in MSI, right?
I forgot even farther back, right when this main season started, they were bottom 3, which is saying something. I think it was them.
It was tough.
I think it was Golden Guardians, Immortals, and TSM were the bottom 3.
TSM was at the top at the beginning.
Really?
Because they went 2-0.
No, I'm saying before the season started.
Oh.
Everyone was doing their pre-ranks.
I say so, yeah. I think they went 0-4, 0-3 until they went to their 7-win streak. But yeah, I agree. They had a very bad first impression. That's one thing I would like to say. So a lot of people right off the bat were just as expected, they're Golden Guardians. They're not, they're not a top contender. But look at them,
Yeah, they made it.
They went
it's the farthest Golden Guardians have ever made in history. In their history, not in everyone's history, but just theirs. Mm-hmm. And they did a great job. Yeah. They had 5 First Bloods.
They had 5 First Bloods in FlyQuest, and also speak on momentum. FlyQuest, they're coming back against Golden Guardians after a 3-loss streak against Cloud9, right? So this is also a bit harsh on them. Obviously they want that revenge. They want to go against them one more time to prove themselves, but
it's hard to do sometimes. Sometimes you can't pull it off.
I agree.
There was a couple good moments where I thought one side would win or the other, and it was a coin toss, really. Mm-hmm. It felt all 5 rounds were very much coin tossy. Even when it seemed one-sided, mm-hmm. I felt like at any moment it could be flipped. It was very noticeable with a lot of Golden Guardians playstyle.
Yeah.
They're very much, I would say Golden Guardians, they have the early game down.
They do, for sure.
First 15 minutes, locked down. Everything after that, they kind of don't really know what to do.
No, I think you're absolutely right. First game, FlyQuest versus Golden Guardians. They have that good early game, but they just weren't able to grasp it very well. So, they got destroyed. Vikla, I think he went 11-2 on Jace, which is crazy. But second game, and all the other games where Golden Guardians beat FlyQuest, it was a stomp. Except I think one of the games where they got just an insane team fight while they were behind, and they were able to turn that around. The other 2 games where they won, insane sweeps. And it's like what you were saying before. Just the mid jungle duo is so good in the early game, and also we gotta give props to Huhi here, pulling out the Jarvan, putting us
not just that AP Jarvan.
You remember the build? What was the build?
It was Crown.
Shadow Crown.
Zonia's.
And obviously had the mage support item as well.
Yeah. And I, looking at it, was just I want to try it, but I know low elo would look at me and say that I'm inting.
No, run it down thinking that you're already running it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I don't want to risk it.
Maybe just try that in Norms. But
yeah.
Absolutely.
Norms with a 5-stack. I just have to find 5 friends.
Go outside.
See, I gave up outside to climb. It's kind of controversial to go back
climbing
around.
The virtual mountains. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. My goodness.
Yeah. But all in all, Golden Guardians, they pulled the dub. They scraped through. I was really excited for them.
Mm-hmm. It was insane. I honestly think that throughout the series, FlyQuest definitely could have won. That one game where Licorice played Malphite, they were behind. They just managed to get a perfect team fight. And by the way, both teams, none of them had 10-digit. None of them had 2-digit kills.
Yeah.
It was 6-8 or whatever. Malphite gets a perfect knockup. Wombo combos into Rakan W, and they just all die. And guess what? They ignore Dragon, which I don't even know if it was sole point. They just race it down mid. And because the early game was already pretty good, they've got the turrets and everything like that. It was a shock for sure, because we all think that FlyQuest is gonna win. They got that first win at the beginning, and usually if you win the first game and it's a 5-game series, and if you swap back and forth, usually FlyQuest wins, right? Usually the person that wins the first game wins. And that swap was happening, that flip-flop between FlyQuest, Golden Guardians. And it should have been FlyQuest again, but Golden Guardians, they just had a miracle team fight.
That they did. And also, I was excited right off the bat because FlyQuest swapped Ayla out, which from last week we both talked about, where at least in my opinion was one of the problems, Vikla being the other one.
Yeah, and in this series, we did see Vikla make some mistakes as well.
Yeah, but I still think, even though that they did lose, I don't think it was Winsom's fault. I think he did an amazing job. Mm-hmm. For the limited time that he was able to do, he did a phenomenal job. I
think he did a good job too. I didn't really notice him being the problem. There's also that thing about Vikla, he always gets caught out. I don't know if there's communication issues. We never thought it would be communication issues because when the season started and FlyQuest just came out just slamming, I mean, the team looked great. Their composition was perfect. But now could it possibly be overconfidence? It could be overconfidence.
Because sometimes you get that in people where they think they're just better and they won't try to fix their fuck-ups.
Another thing I'm worried about is it might not be Vikla, but it just might be the fact that FlyQuest has conformed to such a cookie-cutter team.
Yeah.
We look at Impact, and you will not believe, he played Sion first game, Sion second game, Ornn third game,
ooh,
Cassante fourth game,
there it is,
and Sion fifth game.
I forgot about the Ornn game. I was about to say he only played Sion and Cassante. Yeah. That's all he did during the main season.
And the Ornn game they won because they outscaled with the Jinx. It was great. Yeah. But look how unflexible he is. We know he's good at tanks, but at the end of the day, Golden Guardians, they finally took that fifth game just counterpicking him. He's like, oh, Impact. Let me guess. I wonder who Impact's gonna play. A tank. And guess what? He just gets the counterpick.
Yeah.
And he gets Fiora, instantly demolishes. And it's not because Licorice is just skilled, but they've been showing their script to Golden Guardians' face that whole series. And eventually at Game 5, they're like, okay, maybe we'll actually read it. Maybe we'll actually cheat off the cheat code that you're giving me. You know what I mean?
And Golden Guardians probably had one of the best glow up moments in Licorice actually doing stuff.
Yeah, usually we see him on Renekton just being that huge weak side, often dying, getting caught out, but Yeah,
he did so well, they gave him player MVP of the day.
Yeah.
Which they probably regretted in finals, which was today, against Cloud9. I predicted Golden Guardians 3-2. I figured it was going to be another uphill battle, but they would make it. Mm-hmm. You had Cloud9 at what?
I had Cloud9 winning 3-1. So luckily, my prediction was correct.
Mine
surprisingly.
Was way wrong.
This is the first time my prediction was correct. Let's go.
Right off the bat, in both Game 1 and Game 2, Golden Guardians had a massive early lead.
They did.
And Game 1, just like they did against FlyQuest, they dropped the ball.
Yeah.
They were 1-8 or 1-7, and then they just do a dumb play bot side and just start snowballing it into train.
I mean, we've seen this in the FlyQuest Golden Guardians game too, where Golden Guardians, they had a 30 kill lead, but it took them forever, almost 30 to 40 minutes to end the game. And we saw the same thing here. They have a great early game, which is super good, especially during this meta, right? So if it were Cloud9 to get that early game lead, it should have been a free win for them. But Golden Guardians, they dropped the ball. It's they have a bunch of money that they stole from the bank, right? And they're like, oh, what do we do now? They're just sort of just outside of the bank, holding all that cash and waiting for the cops to come for them,
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I was getting.
It very much was that. And even in Game 3 and 4, you could see Golden Guardians trying to accomplish the same results, but just not doing. Game 3 was devastating. You now discover why you need at least one tank. Even solo queues know this standard. If you do not have one tank, GG next game. And do you know why you need at least a tank? Or at least a common big bruiser?
Why?
Because if you don't, everyone will die. It takes one solid assassin to destroy your whole team comp.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what Cloud9 did.
Yeah. We got a...
Blabber's Elise did not get banned in game 3. And Blabber's just like, I bet.
The enemy team picked all squishies.
They first picked Elise.
Yeah.
Knowing this, Golden Guardians decided, you know what? We can also pick squishies and win against the champions whose whole purpose in life is to try to one-shot you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the end...
You want to talk about the killer
Oh, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
But in the end, it failed. Just as well as Licorice failing at this whole finals.
It's so funny because you're just complimenting him.
Oh, I was. He had the biggest glow up. He was Icarus. He flew too close to the sun just to drop down like a bag of bricks.
Oh my god.
The man went from hero to zero, the reverse of Hercules.
Oh my. Yeah, I definitely agree. He was flying. He was getting close to the clouds, but you know what happens when you get close to the clouds? Your wings melt.
Berserker slaps you down while Fudge just waves at you going, nice try. And Sven going, no cap, easy. Blabber just goes, hey, where's the crabber? And Vanessa doesn't know a whole lot of English, but just waves with a cape.
I really want to win worlds.
No, the Kennen picks were so bad.
Mm-hmm. And just
every time he
was not a good.
He was indecisive, refused to go in. I'm going to be biased. Licorice should never play. If I see him,
oh my god!
If I see him pick Kennen in MSI, I will already automatically assume the other team wins.
Yeah, and even against FlyQuest 2, they played one Kennen game. I think first game, did not win.
Yep. I also have the same. We both have the same thought with Sejuani.
Yeah.
First 2 games we saw her, surprise, surprise. Each team that had her, they lost.
Yeah, the only game that Cloud9 lost, they had Sejuani in their team.
Shocker.
What a surprise. We just talked about... we're Iron analysts, by the way, and even we can predict what's going to happen.
Yeah. Sometimes solo queue meta matters.
Sometimes it's all... The answers are all on the screen.
We're really dumb. We don't know how pros play too much, but... we can at least tell when something's good or something's bad.
Yeah, even babies know how to tell patterns, okay?
Yeah.
Just how it is. The Zeri picks Golden Guardians.
A little rough. They should have stopped that. I wanted to see more Tristana, Zeri.
They won 1 game with Xayah.
I wanted to not Zeri. I wanted to see more Xayah.
They lost all 3 games with
just any. You could have gotten Varus. I would have been happy with that. Caitlyn. I would have been happy with that.
I think he only knows how to play Zeri or Caitlyn. Because Caitlyn got banned.
He's played Tristana before. He won with Tristana before. Against, evil geniuses. It was a thing. It happened. It was great.
It's weird because we thought he was flexible, remember? When Golden Guardians won that 7 win streak, they played Stixxay played a different ADC almost every game. Caitlyn, Varus,
So
Ezreal.
Watching the games, I did have one little kind of like a shower thought almost.
Okay.
Noticing their drafts, Golden Guardians drafts were completely different almost, kinda. 75% different from when they beat FlyQuest, 100 Thieves, Evil Geniuses. I wonder if it was just because of the pressure and how nervous the coaches were. Because in the end, it's the coach's decision on what they pick.
True. We can blame the player's skill, but we can't blame the player's champion.
We blame draft on coaches, and when you go 1-6-4 like Licorice on Kennen or something like that, it was really bad. Then we blame the player.
He reminded me of Ayla, when Ayla was going against Cloud9, where you would just stay back, and then just we're fighting, and then he just goes in.
Yeah. The only good thing that came out of Cloud9 beating Golden Guardians is that Sven got humbled.
Damn, that was weird.
He played Thresh first 20 minutes. The man didn't know how the champion worked. It felt like
he got first blooded, I believe, too.
Yeah, he did
instantly. He missed play,
and then after the next 20 minutes, or after that 20-minute marker, he would flip a coin, and it was, "Hey, I did a good play with Thresh," or "What was that hook?"
It was funny because every hook that he did land was not in a team fight.
or the ones that were in a team fight, it was point blank, real hard to miss when they're just up giving you a good old hug and you just reach down and give them a little tickle.
Oh god. Wait, reach down? Okay.
But secondly, when Golden Guardians played them in regular season, I believe they beat them once.
Yeah.
And when that happened, Sven went on record and said that it was a fluke and that they're a fraud team and they'll never make it.
Mm-hmm. Content king. That's what Dash called him.
Yeah. Very controversial thing to say out loud. And they proved him wrong in a sense. Like, not only did they beat other great teams, they made it to finals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter how bad people think you are, to beat other people, to be number 2 in all of LCS, at that point, you're no longer a fraud. And he recognized that, and during the speech, he did apologize. Which I think is the first time I've ever heard him say he got humbled before.
It also just looked weird because I just see him as like a cocky, like, bastard kind of like, persona that he like shows on screen. But then when he just like this like huge, like tall ass guy, just like kind of like slouching and just being like
becomes humble, you're just like, whoa, what is this?
Like, what is this? Like, this is not what I know.
As a man who has strong opinions on Sven, I approve of what he did.
Respectable.
Yep. He still needs to spend more time on engaged supports.
And what did you think of Hui this? Like, did he play well?
Hui did the best that he could.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he would have preferred other champions besides just Lulu.
Yeah.
Like, he did a really good job on the Rakan.
He was definitely forced into the Lulu position just because they were so obsessed with picking Seri.
Yeah. And so I will not blame Hui. I still think he is an amazing support. Probably, in my opinion,
top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I'd say a top 3 support in LCS.
I would have Vulcan, Winsome, and Hui in my top 3.
I think that's valid.
Personal.
That's valid.
They're all very well rounded. There's not a single champion that like they struggle on necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sven's gotten 2 back-to-back champions, but they've clearly been on a certain off group. And in my opinion, just because you win something doesn't mean you're the best.
Mm-hmm.
That just means your team is the best.
For sure.
And he just hasn't made the cut yet.
Yeah, he hasn't really shown off. But at the same time, like you said, that series he was like there for the ride. And
which is very noticeable with Berserker popping off.
It's definitely noticeable, but at the same time, it's fine. Because sometimes an ADC just needs a chill support. They'll, just be there for him when they're scaling and one-shotting everyone.
Yep, and we got to see one of our 2 favorite champions that Berserker got to play, his Aphelios. Love to see it.
Aphelios
very
so
clean. Good. The man was destroying.
Absolutely.
The biggest, probably most exciting for me was Fudge on Olaf.
It was amazing. I think the last time I saw Olaf just like tearing it up was when Broken Blade on G2 would just like tower, like running into their base, and I just got the same vibes, Yeah. But he played so confidently, even against Malphite, where he had half health lower than the Malphite. He would just keep, hitting him because he knows his limits. You see him. People can say that Olaf is his dumb champion, but when I see Fudge dominating on Olaf, I'm like, hey, this guy knows his champion's limits, and that's impressive.
Yeah, and because since he's also played one split as a mid laner, very first game they flexed to mid to go. Because Olaf into the Cassante.
Yeah.
Which I feel like was a great pick.
I think that was good.
Like, MNS struggled top. He's not used to the whole... It's a different world there.
No, absolutely. And Orianna top, it's like playing Teemo without being as skinny. I don't know.
Though it did cause Licorice to get a really big ego, which then towards late game, MNS was just like, solo 1v1 of just...
Yeah.
Hey, stop that. And they smacked him.
Yeah, that was funny. Just solo killed him in the bot lane. That was funny. Speaking of MNS, though, I think for me, MNS was my MVP.
It was 100% Fudge.
100% Fudge.
He hard carried 2 out of their 3 victories.
Yeah, and in the loss he didn't even play that bad.
Yeah.
Right. So I definitely think Fudge was the most consistent out of all those games. But I think just watching MNS just makes me smile. His LeBlanc is so consistent. He plays confidently. I love it.
We'll talk more about MSI in an international episode. But I will say, just from an LCS standpoint, I am excited for Cloud9 and MSI.
Yeah, me too.
Just hopefully, whatever patch they play MSI, it's still Enchanter heavy.
No. I mean, Sven got humbled, right? And
yeah.
Because of it, he might change up a bit. Who knows, right? Might get some lessons from Huhi, pick up the Jarvan support or whatnot.
We'll have to see.
But I'm excited. At the end, Fudge said that interview. He said he takes a lot from his losses and he tries to take it all in. Last year, when he lost in Worlds, he got destroyed by a lot of great Fiora players and Jax players.
Decimated.
Yeah, he got decimated. But, you know, you told me this before, like a couple months ago, when the new spring split started, you know, he was tearing it up on the Fiora and the Jax. And you were kind of mentioning, you know, after he got decimated, like you said, by all these, you know, Asian Jax and Fiora players,
let's be more specific. Korean top laners.
Korean and Chinese.
No, Korean.
Okay, my bad.
Let's announce who the big dogs are.
Zeus. But yeah, no, we're not going there yet. But he definitely learned, and you can tell his Jax and Fiora, his duelist top laners look completely different from the rest of the top laners in the LCS.
And then for MSI and the podcast, once most major regions, we'll probably do one more international podcast next week. And that'll probably be the only podcast that week. We'll probably have that one still air on its normal date on Wednesday. Going forward into MSI, we'll just have one big segment airing on Mondays for MSI, where we'll go into depths on our thoughts. Right before MSI, we'll probably take a small weekend break. There'll probably be 1 week where we don't post anything, just because we don't want to just spam nonsense at you. We still want to be somewhat analytical in our nonsense. So we'll probably take a small break, and then once MSI starts, we'll kick her back up. Come see our wonderful shorts that we create on YouTube.
Those are funny.
Yeah, I've learned how to edit. From a person that grew up in the backwoods of the United States, I now know how to computer. That's all thanks to Shadow.
So there's an ant, and I just killed it, and it's on my finger. I need to clean it off.
Well, can't wait to see you guys next week. And just remember that grass doesn't exist.